Hey everybody, before we get started, I just want to give a big shout out to Chris Gantan, aka Vegan Tanman on Instagram. He gave me a ton of tips on how to make vegan ramen for this episode. Please give him a follow. All right, on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Way of Ramen. Well, you guys asked for it, so here it is. A bowl of vegan ramen. Vegan Tonkotsu Ramen to be exact. So obviously this doesn't have any pork bones in it, but it has the same creamy texture as Tonkotsu Ramen and it's packed with umami. This is my first time making vegan ramen and I got a lot of help and this turned out way better than I expected. So yeah, let's get right into it. So I'm gonna start off by making some homemade noodles for this bowl. I've made noodles a ton on this channel and I have a video all about how to make them. So if you wanna learn how to make noodles, you can watch that video and get a basic primer on the theory of making ramen noodles. I'm gonna throw up the ratios on the screen here that I used for this batch because they turned out really great. Basically, my idea was to bump up the potassium carbonate amount in the kansui and decrease the sodium carbonate to create a firmer noodle without having to go super low on the hydration. It actually worked out really well and it fit this bowl perfectly. I'm gonna let these noodles rest one day in the fridge and use them tomorrow. I'm also starting to prep of my Dashi Stock from my ramen the night before as well. I'm soaking some Konbu and one Shiitake mushroom in some cold water overnight. This is about 1.5 liters of water, by the way. If you don't have time, you can soak for just 30 minutes, but the longer you soak, the more umami you're gonna get. So the next day, we're gonna get that dashi cold soak onto the stove and just bring it up to temperature. The important thing for dashi is you never want to boil it. If the dashi boils, you destroy a lot of the umami compounds, so don't let that happen. I'm using an induction stove for this. My induction stove allows me to set and hold a particular temperature, so I don't really need to watch and adjust the heat. I'm heating to 175 degrees Fahrenheit here, which is well below boiling but hot enough to extract all that umami goodness. After about 10 minutes or so, I removed the Konbu and Shiitake, and the dashi stock was done. First thing I'm going to use the dashi for is to make a tare. I'm going to take 200 milliliters of the dashi and use that for the base. To that, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of moshio, which is a kombu salt from Japan. Now, I'm not really sure how they make this, but it's packed with umami and it's almost like cheating. I probably should have added 2 teaspoons here because at the end the tare could have been a little saltier. I'm still experimenting with this, but I'll leave a link below in the description for moshio on Amazon. If you don't have it, it's fine. You can just use fine sea salt. To that, I'm going to add 100 milliliters of regular soy sauce and 100 milliliters of Usukuchi Shoyu and about 25 milliliters of Mirin. I'm just going to pour that into the dashi and my tare is done. A super simple raw tare because I plan to use this on the same day. The next step, I'm going to take the rest of that dashi and make a vegetable soup stock out of it. The thing about vegan ramen is because you're not using bones, the actual cook time of the soup can be super short. Vegetables are usually only added in the last hour of boiling for regular ramen, so I'm going to shoot for an hour of cook time for the veggie soup. To the remaining dashi, I'm adding a quarter of the potato, some green onions, a quarter round onion, and 2 garlic cloves. I set the temp on the induction stove to the same temperature, about 175 degrees, and let it go for an hour. And after about an hour, the potato was still pretty firm, so I let it go for another 30 minutes. At that point, the potato still didn't really break down, but I didn't want the other vegetables to start breaking down too, so I pulled the soup there. It tasted really good, but I still need to do more experimenting with potatoes in soup. For my aroma oil, I'm doing a shallot oil. According to Chris, he found shallot oil works really well with vegan python ramen, so I'm gonna try it out. I'm just gonna finally chop up some shallots and get them into a pan of neutral vegetable oil. I'm using grapeseed oil here, but canola oil works fine, if not better. I'm just gonna slowly fry these shallots on low heat until they're pretty much almost burnt. Then I'm gonna strain out the oil to use and also keep the fried shallots for a topping. Speaking of toppings, I'm gonna get some prepped here. I'm gonna do a vegan version of this moyashi recipe I saw on YouTube. I'm blanching about 200 grams of bean sprouts here in boiling water for about 30 seconds. Then I'm gonna strain and cool them down on the running water and get them into a bowl. Then I'm adding 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, some crystallized umami powder, some sesame seeds, a clove of crushed garlic, some chili pepper powder, and some salt. I'm just gonna give this a stir and adjust the seasoning. I think the non-vegan version might be a little better, but this just means I gotta tinker with this version a little bit. I'm I'm gonna use roasted tomatoes as my chashu replacement. It's not gonna taste like chashu, but that's okay. All I want is something savory that I can bite into and get punched in the mouth with umami. I'm gonna get these tomato slices into a pan and then drizzle them with a little shallot oil. Then I'm gonna just hit them with a little kosher salt, some soy sauce, and some mirin, kind of like a makeshift chashu tare. Then I'm gonna roast them in the oven for about 20 minutes at 400 degrees and they're done. I'm gonna slice up some rehydrated wood ear mushrooms here. They're really great in tonkotsu ramen, so I'm gonna use them here as well. I sauteed them in some sesame oil off camera for 1 minute. Okay, so now it's time to finally put it all together. I'm gonna heat up 300 ml of oat milk. This again was a recommendation from Chris. I'm using the Oatly brand, which is super creamy and not overly sweet. To that, I'm gonna add 100 milliliters of Dashi Stock, and again, I'm gonna heat this up without letting it boil. To serve the ramen, add 30 ml of the Tare and 20 ml of the shallot oil into a heated bowl. Get your noodles out of the fridge and give them a good fluff to untangle them. Drop the noodles into boiling water and cook them for about 1 minute and 10 seconds. While the noodles are cooking, add your hot soup into the bowl. And when the noodles are done, strain them and add them straight into the hot soup. Top with your roasted tomato, bean sprouts, kikurage wood ear mushrooms, green onion, and the fried shallots. I went a little overboard with the fried shallots because it tasted so good. And I also drizzled a little bit more shallot oil on top because I'm trying to make this as unhealthy as possible. But that, my friends, is a bowl of vegan tonkotsu ramen. Now, this is my first time making vegan ramen, and I really didn't know what to expect. Without bones or meat, you're not able to get a key umami component called inasenate, so I was a little afraid that this bowl would be lacking in umami, so to compensate, I crammed so much glutamate in here that it turned out to be a complete umami bomb. It was way better than I expected, and I actually wouldn't mind eating this regularly. Unlike regular tonkotsu ramen, I didn't feel like I needed a nap after eating this. The roasted tomato is a great topping for this style of ramen, really satisfying, and the bean sprouts and wood ear mushrooms give great texture. When I made this bowl, I added 20 milliliters of tare because I forgot I was doing 400 milliliters of soup. It probably needs 30 ml of tare if you're doing 400 ml of soup, but as with all ramen, feel free to experiment with the ratios and make it something that tastes good to you. Again, I want to give a big shout out to Chris for all the help with this video. I had Chris on my podcast, and that's how I learned a bunch of these vegan ramen techniques. You can listen to his episode anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just search Way of Ramen Podcast. And please give him a follow on Instagram too, at vegan.tunman. Also, a big shout out to Ramlard for all the help with the tare. I was a bit stuck and he gave me a great ratio to start with. Follow him on Instagram at ramen__lord. As always, you can follow me on Instagram at Way of Ramen. Tag me in your pics of ramen and maybe I'll start sharing them on future videos on the channel. Also, feel free to join our ramen Discord server. If you ever need help with something, there are people in there talking about ramen pretty much all hours of the day. Link in the description below. So yeah, that was a bowl of vegan ramen. Have you guys ever made vegan ramen? Let me know in the comments below what you guys do for that. And as always, thank you guys all so much for the support. Thank you for watching these videos. I really do appreciate it. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.